Greetings, I am Tom Earl. On this week's episode, I offer you 7 tools for relationship building negotiation. Greetings, I am Tom Earl, and this is my year of balance. It's a joy, an honor, and a pleasure to have you here today. I know you could be anywhere, so the fact that you're here with me, it is truly a blessing, my friends. So what I'd like for us to do is to start off in a way that brings our energy up. So if you could just put your hand on your heart, breathe in through your nose, ready, go, and breathe out. Just feel your heart pulsing. One more time, breathe in through your nose and breathe out. I want you to think of what is one thing you're grateful for that maybe it's hidden in plain sight. It's one of those things that because you're around it so much, you forget how grateful you are for it. Could be someone in your life, or could be something you can do with your body, like how you can digest your food or breathe without thinking about it, or our ozone layer. Think of something like that. Next, I want you to think of what is a magic moment that's happened in this past week. What is something that happened that if you thought about it, it was really special? I know for me was today, Adora and I went for a walk and we got to this really high hill and I could just see a bunch of Los Angeles. It was super beautiful. Think of something like that. And lastly, I want you to think of what is something you are grateful for about who you are. You could think of this one as what is something you love about yourself? Are you grateful that you're kind, that you're creative, that you're a great friend, a great daughter, a great mother, a great son, a great brother? Think of one thing you love about yourself. Breathe in one more time through your nose and release. Yes, indeed, my friends. That took 2 minutes and 20 seconds. In 2 minutes and 20 seconds, we were able to shift our connection to our body, to our mind, and to this day. We anchored ourselves in gratitude, centered ourselves by feeling our heartbeat and connecting our breathing to the energy level that we're looking for. I want to continue to encourage you every episode to take time throughout your day to do short exercises like this, and you'll notice a huge difference. Today, we're going to talk about 7 strategies or 7 tips for positive and relationship building negotiation. You can either listen to this as a podcast or watch it as a video, all of it at tomearl.com/negotiate. A lot of times, or a lot of us, we have a mental image of what does it mean to negotiate. We have a stereotype or generalizations, and we've heard things, and so we all have this story. Or as we talked about in the last episode, we all have an emotional script of the word negotiate. Oftentimes, we associate negotiating with trying to screw somebody over, or trying to railroad somebody, or trying to win everything while trying to make the other person feel like so did they, or some sort of manipulation, or a lot of these negative connotations. And I want to share with you that in negotiation research, when you read into what is at the cutting edge of research, or what is the strategies that people are using that are effective, we find that that kind of negotiation is outdated, that people aren't using that kind of negotiation anymore. And why is that? Because it doesn't work as effectively as relationship building negotiation. So I just want you to, for a little bit, in case we or potentially have these stereotypes or generalizations about negotiating. You're thinking, I don't want to listen to this. This isn't for me. Just give it a shot. Just listen to this and see, is there something that resonates with you? Because negotiation isn't just about trying to negotiate something to do with money. We're negotiating things all throughout our day with people, with ourselves, and it helps to have these tips and tools in your belt. So give it a shot. See what you think, okay? The first tip, the first thing to think about with negotiation is this: the power of relationships. This holds supreme over anything you're doing in a negotiation, is to keep in mind the power of relationships. This is twofold. It means, one, that everything happens through a relationship. If you're feeling friction with somebody, if you're feeling tension, if you're feeling animosity, if you're feeling like you're just stuck, it's probably because you're not putting into practice the power of relationships. One thing to think about is, if you can't name 5 things you value or appreciate about the person you're talking to, they're gonna sense it on a subconscious or often conscious level. This could be somebody you've never talked to on the phone before. Maybe you're on a customer service call trying to get your internet bill lowered. If you can't think of 5 things you appreciate about them, they're gonna experience it in your interaction with them. So it doesn't have to be things about them specifically, but it could be, I appreciate that I can push a number and in a matter of minutes get a hold of somebody instantly to help me. I appreciate that you're being calm. I appreciate that you're respecting me. Think of 5 things, even if it's somebody that maybe you've had past experiences that you don't like them. Think of 5 things. The other thing is that if through a negotiation, you never want to sacrifice the relationship. I've walked away from many deals, from many opportunities, because I knew that it would ruin either the relationship with the person that I was negotiating with, or because of the outcome of the negotiation, it would ruin a relationship. And that doesn't mean that by living your truth or being authentic or being honest, if some people can't handle that and because of their own baggage that they walk away from the relationship. I'm not referring to that. I mean by our own actions, because we're either being deceitful, we're being manipulative or dishonest, or pushing somebody up with their back against the wall. Any of those things, it's never worth a negotiation deal, because it's short-term thinking. Yeah, in the moment you might end up with this awesome deal and you feel super rich or you feel awesome, but you know what happens is the person cools off and they recognize that they've been played, and that is going to become your reputation. That, yeah, you negotiate with this person and they're going to get all the chips. They're going to win it because they will use any means necessary to get what they want. So I would just recommend not even doing business with them unless you absolutely have to. That's not what you want going into negotiation, is that reputation. So you never want to sacrifice the relationship for the deal. So have that going through your mind whenever you enter a negotiation. That first, you need to build a relationship with the person. Second, don't sacrifice the relationship for a deal. The second one is this: slow it down. There is no reason to rush a negotiation. Right now, I'm interviewing people I'm looking to bring on an ad agency to help with some aspects of my business. And I've been in negotiation with conversations with a lot of different agencies. And there's a style that you can notice right away in people who are negotiating a sale, where they try to rush the deal. They try to speed it up for, I can only guess, to try to get momentum going so that I can't help but say yes. You might have experienced this with somebody where they're trying to get you to say yes a bunch of times. It's a great deal, right? Come on, you can do this, and it's a win-win, and it's going to be awesome. And so what I'm going to do is it's going to be for this much, which is a great deal. You already know it's a great deal, and so I have everything pulled up. You have your credit card ready, and you're like, yes, I'm not sure. I'm sure you've experienced this where somebody tries to rush the sale. Or we might have tried to do this where we're anxious or we're nervous. So we try to get to the part where we talk about the deal really quickly. We try to push through it. But what you want to first do is remember, of course, that it's all about relationships and that relationships take time. So the second thing to think about is to slow it down. to take your time. I've been on the line. I was thinking this is a customer service situations are a lot of times where we as everyday people use negotiations. And I was on the line one time with somebody from Amazon, and I'm a Prime member, and I noticed that half of my Prime stuff was going to be sent on Friday, half was going to be sent on a Thursday. Now, I needed everything on a Thursday, so it was telling me that for half of the stuff, Thursday was going to be considered a one-day delivery instead of the free 2-day delivery. So I got the person on the phone, and I explained the situation, and she said, "Oh, okay, tell me how much would it be for one-day delivery, because maybe I can waive it." I said, $350. And she said, "There's no way I can waive that much of a delivery fee." Because basically I was asking her, can you waive this $350 and send it to me? Now at this point, a lot of times we try to push against that resistance. And instead what I did was went to, number one is I realized it's a relationship. Number two is I slowed it down. I'll use this example throughout to show you what developed. But what I'm going to share with you is in the end, I was on the phone with them for an hour, which meant I really slowed it down. I took my time. I had confidence and creativity throughout the call. And in the end, an hour call saved me $350. And the person left feeling, hey, I'm really glad I talked to you. Good luck with your business. So that to me was a win-win. I use that example to share, take your time. Sometimes you actually have to come back and say, let's pause and revisit this negotiation. But you want to slow it down. The reason you're slowing it down is because you want to be an active listener. This is tool number 3. If you are talking more than listening during a negotiation process, you are not in control. I'm going to run that back again. If you are talking more than listening during the negotiation process, you are not in control of that negotiation, which seems counterintuitive. I've noticed a lot of people, which is usually why most people are not good at negotiation, think that they need to be talking. They need to be selling themselves or their product or trying to get their needs vocalized onto the table. You want to be the one that is listening the most. The person who is the best listener wins. And not wins in terms of I win and you lose, wins in terms of our goal, which our goal in a negotiation is to build the relationship and to get what we need. And at first we say, well, how can you get what you need and build the relationship? How can you do both of those things? Isn't what you need sometimes going against what the other person needs? So how can you get what you need and still build the relationship? That's why you need to listen. You need to listen to figure out, where do our needs meet? Where is it so that I can build my relationship with you while still getting what I need? Right? The only way you're going to figure that out is by listening. I want to offer you 2 tips for being an active listener. One is to ask open-ended questions. That means questions the person can't answer with a yes or a no. And when you ask that open-ended question, to be genuinely curious and free from judgment. So a lot of that has to do with your tone, the inflection that you use. So when you do that, a person is going to elaborate on something. They're going to clarify something. They're going to offer you information that is going to be useful in the negotiation. So when people share with you, have your open-ended questions you can ask. Another great strategy in active listening is mirroring what the person said. What that looks like is repeating the last 3 to 5 things that they just said back to them. So if I was to say to you, so what I have to tell you, Tom, we'll go back to my Amazon order, is, there's no way I can waive $350 in shipping. I just can't do it. And I'd say, there's no way you can waive $350 in shipping? There's nothing you can do? And when you do that, people can't help but elaborate. So then she's going to say, well, I guess sometimes, actually, this is what she said, sometimes I can, but I have to get a supervisor's permission. And I said, you have to get a supervisor's permission? I mean, yeah, that's what I'd need to do. Do you want me to do that? And then I said, that would be wonderful. So you see, just by mirroring what they say and the person hearing it back, they start to work through the problem with you. And they can't help but elaborate. Even people I know who are trained in using mirroring don't realize when they're being mirrored. So you might be thinking, Tom, that sounds super obvious. The person's going to recognize what I'm doing, is going to say, quit trying to mirror me. But for some reason or another, we don't notice when we're being mirrored. Why? Because it feels so good to be mirrored. It's like, you heard me. I promise, test it out in non-negotiation settings if you're worried it's too high stakes to try it. When you're talking to somebody on the phone and they're telling you how their day is, mirror them. They say, so, I had a really good day. You had a good day? Yeah, it was so super cool. I went shopping. You went shopping? Yeah, I got a really cool, some new pants. You got new pants? Yeah, I got them at this store. You got them at this store? I promise you the conversation will just keep going and going, and they'll tell you more. And at the end, they'll feel you're a really good listener because you were a good listener. The other thing about mirroring is to mirror body language. If a person has their hand like this when they're talking to you, wait till it's your turn to talk and then mirror the way that they're sitting. So if you can't see me, I'm leaning my hand against my cheek. Don't do it right away. Wait, the person has their hand against their cheek. When it's your turn to talk, shift and put your hand against your cheek. Or if they cross their legs, when you go to speak, cross your legs. Next thing you know, because of the way our brain is made, the way our eyes and our brain line up, when you mirror somebody on a subconscious level, it tells them that you got their back. Especially when they talk and they talk with their hands. So when I'm talking with my hands, I use my right hand and I keep flipping it back and forth and back and forth. When it's your turn to talk, and don't exaggerate it, but if you do something like that, right? Or when the person has a good idea, they snap. When you have a good idea, if you snap, I know it sounds like they're going to think you're making fun of them, but when you do it subtly, it makes the person feel connected to you. And if you have good intentions, it's a great way to build a relationship. This is something I do when somebody's feeling very tense, when they're feeling frustrated, or I come across somebody who's having a panic attack. I start to mirror the calm things they're doing, and it slows everything down because we feel connected to that person. So what was number 3? Tip number 3, be an active listener. The person who's listening the most wins. The step number 4 is the reason we're listening is because we want to figure out, what do they really want? Remember how I was saying that there is a way to build the relationship and get what you need. And the way you do that is figuring out, what does this person really want? The only way to figure that out is to ask questions. Because oftentimes, because of the stereotypes, the exaggerations, the generalizations, the emotional script associated with negotiation, most people go into a negotiation really like, I'm going to hold all my information to my chest, because if I give you anything, you're going to use it to manipulate me. You're going to use it to get one over on me. This is usually what people do going into a negotiation. So when you become an active listener and you mirror people with your questions or with your body, you get them to relax. And by mirroring and asking open-ended questions, they start to share information about who they are. They start to share information about what motivates them. They start to share motivation about what they're looking for. For instance, I was negotiating with somebody the price of a space I was renting. And at first they quoted me a price that was really low. And I was like, that's great. That's the price I'm looking for. So when they sent me over the quote, it was about $500 more than what they told me. So we got on the phone and I slowed it down and I started asking questions, trying to figure out, why was the price what it was? And at first they were saying, that's just what it is. It's what it's always been. And rather than putting them on the defensive by saying, no, you told me it was this, honor it. By saying something like that, I'm going to put them on the defensive. So I said, it's always been like that? Well, you know what I mean. That's just, it's what it is right now in the system. That's what it is in the system. Yeah, I mean, and eventually they said, okay, look, I know I quoted you at $500 less, but if I honor that, what I wrote down, I'm going to get in trouble and it's going to come out of my pocket. So now I know that the reason the person wants to keep it at this new price is not because it has to be, but because their job is on the line. If they honor the price that they originally quoted me for, they potentially could get written up, reprimanded. It could affect their livelihood. So if I don't care about the relationship, I could say, put me on the phone with your manager because this is crazy. I should get the original package you wrote me. However, now I'm going to ruin the relationship. Is it worth that $500? That's the thing we have to think about. So I'm building up all these examples, but the information I got in that one was what this person really wants is a deal that'll make their supervisor happy, will put them in good standings, and at the same time will get me to be a reoccurring customer. So I figured out that information by asking questions. So continue to ask questions until you figure out what motivates this person. What is the thing that they want out of this negotiation? Step number 5, I already alluded to, or tip number 5, is to control your emotions. Control your emotions. I could have in that moment got really defensive and said to the person, look, this isn't fair. Because of your mistake, I should have to pay $500 more. How do you think the person's going to react if I do that? They're instantly going to go on the defense. A lot of people aren't self-aware enough to know that a button has been pushed. A lot of people aren't self-aware enough to realize that they have certain investments or there's certain motivations that are influencing a negotiation. For instance, that person's influence had nothing to do with me and everything to do with their relationship between them and their supervisor. And if I let my emotions get the best of me, if I start to take something personal during a negotiation, I'm going to lash out. I've coached people through many a negotiation. Oftentimes, if you go into a high stakes negotiation, you never go in by yourself. You always go in with the team because then the team can watch body language when somebody said something or they can take notes. It creates space for people to listen better. And there's always this place where you get to where we both feel this, you get me. Okay, there it is. That's what you get me. A phrase you want to hear in a negotiation is, that's right. If somebody says, that's right, you know that you're in a good place. If you let your emotions get the best of you and you go on the offense or you start lashing out at somebody or you go into super defensive mode and become passive aggressive or all those things, you're going to take yourself further and further away from a that's right or that connection. And why is that? Because now you've made it personal. You've made it so that if the person gives you any sort of resolution or they give you any sort of offering or they, if they said, we'll give you $500, if they give you a penny over $500, by letting my emotions get the best of me, I now make it personal that if you give me that, it means I win and you lose. So why would anybody give that to you unless they absolutely have to? So what we want to do is control our emotions by remembering it's not about me. This is not personal. I don't know why this person is doing this. And if something gets really tense, like let's say somebody gets really frustrated, what you want to do is ask those open-ended questions or mirror in a very calm, relaxed, positive, emotional way. So if somebody's getting really frustrated, they're saying, you know what? This is starting to not even become worth it. I would say it's starting to not become worth it in a calm way. Because if I could say it's starting to not become worth it, it's going to agitate. But if it's starting to not become worth it, almost like you're like, huh? It's starting to not become worth it in a really calm way. And they say, yeah, it's just, and oftentimes they're going to reveal what it is they really want in this next phrase. It's just, I feel like I'm being manipulated. You feel like you're being manipulated. Yeah, it's it's not fair. So the person starts to work through what it is that's bothering them. And they share it with you. And you can either realize, hey, you know what? That is something I did. Or you can start to name it and say, hey, I can recognize that through this negotiation process, it probably seems, or it can seem like I'm trying to be really greedy. Or in this negotiation process, I realize how it can seem like I'm being tough. And when you name it, it diffuses it. And you're going to name what you hear them saying seems to be the problem. And when you do that, people feel validated and they feel heard. But also by saying, it seems, or I know it can seem like I'm being like this, you diffuse the situation by naming the boogie monster in the room, right? If you say, it seems like I'm being this, but what I'm really trying to do is, by doing those type of things, we're able to name the boogie monster in the room, and we get closer and closer to what does this person really want. So I know I went a little long on control your emotions, but I can't tell you how many times I've seen a negotiation ruined, whether it's between two friends. It has nothing to do with money. Maybe where do we go out to eat on this car trip, or talking to a customer service agent about trying to get them to send a repair person to your house, or talking to your family about whose house are we going to host Thanksgiving at. All of these are negotiations. It doesn't have to do with, you getting a raise, but if you let your emotions get the best of you, instead of asking questions or building the relationship, you're going to get nowhere. What I want to talk about next is tips for talking about money. Because although a lot of negotiations have nothing to do with money, there are times where negotiations have everything to do with money. The first thing to remember about talking about money is that all of us have a story of what money means. All of us have an emotional script of what money means. For some of us, money means that over a certain line, maybe it's $50,000, $60,000, $10,000, $3,000, $100, $200, over a certain line, some of us think you are now being greedy, or you're now being a sellout, or you're now being exploitative. We all have a line. Some of us have a line below that where unless I get 10,000, unless I get 30,000, unless I get 50,000, it means that I'm being disrespected. So some of us are on the other end. Some of us have this thing where unless I get this much, it means you think blank about me. We all have this emotional baggage around money, especially if we've never actively worked to reflect and go in on what it means. And so like we talked about with controlling your emotions, unless you really reflect on what is your psychology around what money means and what it says, it's going to influence you. So some tips and tools around that is to remember that it's not about you, that it's not personal, that it oftentimes has to do with a person's unexamined thoughts and beliefs as well. So just wanted to put that out there. Here's a couple things to think about when asking about money is, people say, you shouldn't be the first person to say a figure. They should be the first person to say a figure. There's pros and cons about both things. If you've done your work of slowing it down and asking questions, you're gonna learn what the person really wants before you even give out a figure, which was gonna be helpful in what we're gonna talk about after things besides money. But when you go to say a figure, it's helpful to give a range with your number on the lowest end of the range. So let's say you want $90,000. They say, well, what are you looking for? I would say, I'm looking for $90,000 to $125,000. So what you've done is you've created two anchors where they think, whoa, $125,000, that's crazy. $90,000 no longer seems so bad because you've put it at the low end of this range, knowing that people are going to go to the low end of the range because you've given them that option. So by putting it in that context, it makes it way more accessible. So if you're feeling maybe, oh, this is a number, it's too big, put it in a range with your number at the lowest and put something ridiculously high at the high end. So if I want a $10,000 raise. and they say, well, what kind of raise are you thinking? I was thinking a raise in the range of 10,000 to 40,000. Whoa, 40,000. We can definitely do 10,000. So that's one trick or another tool. Another tool is rather than saying an even number where they say, what kind of raise do you want or what kind of salary, saying $40,000. When you give a rounded number like that, it sounds like an estimate. It sounds like a conversation starter. Really doesn't sound like there was a lot of scientific work going into the number you gave. So one strategy is to give an exact number. So instead of saying, okay, what salary were you thinking? Instead of saying 40,000, saying, I was thinking 4,652. 4,652 sounds like you got that number for a reason, especially if you're a freelancer and somebody says, what is your quote? Saying $1,732. That sounds like you arrived at that through some sort of sophisticated process. It doesn't sound like a number you're just throwing out there. So that's a really great strategy, a really great tool to use for talking about money. But when you talk about money, remembering it's all within this same thing of listening for what does the person really want. Because number 7, we are at the end, is that we need to think beyond the dollar. I've been in many negotiations where I was the one hiring a person either on my team or a company to take over some of services of mine, where the person was asking me for the raise or the person was asking me for this is the dollar amount we have. And I've been on the other end where I'm asking for I want a raise or this is the dollar amount you can hire me at. And the thing to remember is to think beyond the dollar. Let's talk about on the one end first. Let's say you're the one asking for the raise. Sometimes there's really nothing the person can do. If you were to say, I want $2,000, and they'd say, really, we can only do $1,200. I could take that personal and say, how dare you? But we want to remember to master my emotions, keep my emotions in check, and recognize that that really might be all they're able to do. Or we say, I've been here for a year, I deserve a raise. And there really just might not be an opportunity for a raise. So you can decide, do you want to leave or stay? If you're going to stay, recognizing there really just might not be that opportunity. It's in moments like that where we want to be creative and confident and think beyond the dollar. What else do you want besides monetary value? Is it flexibility? Do you want a new title? Do you want mentorship? Do you want creative control? Is it that you want Friday off? Is it that you want to be able to create your own schedule? Do you want to be able to work from home? What is it that is something that the person you're talking to can give you that is not of monetary value, right? What is something that you can do from that direction? For instance, I was sharing on the flip side. Let's talk about this before I give the example. On the flip side, let's say you're hiring somebody, whether it's a mechanic or a plumber, or you're talking to somebody that you're buying a car from, or you have an employee and they want a raise and there's nothing you can do. There's no way you can give them a raise because the money's not there, but you still value them as an employee. That's where we run through this again and remember that you want to build the relationship, you want to slow it down, and you want to actively listen to figure out what do they really want. Because for some people, what they really want, even more than a raise, is blank, is what? That's what you need to figure out by asking questions. Some people, even more than a raise, is they want to be recognized. They want to be affirmed. They want to be in a work environment where every day they get a review or they get a time to learn what they're doing, that they're doing well and is appreciated. Some people, even more than money, they want to work from home. Some people, even more than money, they want a title that they feel they deserve and have earned. For some people, even more than any of that, they want flexibility of their schedule. For some people, even more than any of that, it's okay, you can't give me a raise, but I want knowledge and mentorship. So can I work one-on-one with the CEO and learn what they do so I can one day become what they're doing? A lot of times, even more than money, that's something somebody values. And so on both ends, whether you're the employer and somebody's asking for a raise that you can't give, think of what can you bring that's beyond the dollar. If you're the one asking for the raise and it's not there, or let's say you say, I want a $5,000 raise. They say, all we can do is two. And you realize that's all they can do. What can you add beyond the dollar? Okay, I can do that, but then can I have Fridays off? Or can I work from home on Fridays? Okay, that's cool. Can I then start coming in? I would like to have as an agreement coming in at noon on Wednesdays so I can pick up my kids. Think of what is it beyond the dollar? Or right now I'm doing a wage rate. I'm doing hourly. I don't want to have to do hourly anymore. Hourly stinks. How about, okay, you give me the $2,500 raise and it moves to salary so that I don't have to, say, oh, I work 6 hours and 3, that if I get my work done earlier, I get the same. And sometimes if I have to stay later, it all evens out. So think of what is beyond the dollar. For instance, I was working with somebody where I was looking, as I mentioned, to hire an agency to take over an aspect of my ads. And so the person was saying, well, to start working with us, if you want to hire us, then there is a strategic planning session that is going to be $3,500 that you have to do. Now, for me, I was thinking, I am a strategic planner and I'm surrounded by strategic planners. I can just take out one of my friends to lunch and we'll just help each other strategic plan each other's business. I don't need that. It's a barrier to me being, starting with your company, this $3,500. So I didn't say it like that to them. I said, oh, the strategic planning thing for $3,500? I mirrored them and they explained, and I figured out the reason that they want that is, she said, the thing that I found is if I start working with the company and they don't have a plan, things, when they hit the ceiling, they panic and they blame it on our agency when really it was that they didn't have a plan. So I figured out what this person really wants is to work with the company that when things get tough, rather than blaming their agency, they have a plan in place to move through the challenge. So I figured out even more than the $3,500, they want to work with a company that's going to have longevity. So I said, what if I already have a strategic plan in place and I present it to you and your agency approves it? Ooh, now I met that need they were looking for. So she started to get creative. Okay, I can see that. All right, how about if you come with the strategic plan, I'll cut it in half and I'll charge you just $1,500 instead of $3,500. And we'll still have the strategic plan session just so we can go through it. But because you did most of the energy work beforehand, I'll just cut it down to $1,500. Now that still wasn't what I wanted. But rather than rushing it and saying, that's not going to work for me, I said, okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. And I kept looking for what is it the person really wants? Why still this $1,500? So we started talking and I was asking lots of clarifying questions and open-ended questions. And we arrived at realizing that the person has run programs or has worked with companies that are in lots of spaces, but they've never worked with somebody who was a coach or had an online school, which is the situation I was in. And so I said to them, what confidence or what is your strategy then if you've never worked with somebody in my field? Talk to me about why I should still feel confident. And I said it in a friendly way rather than getting them defensive. And so she said, I have the confidence, but you're right. I've never done it before, so I can understand you feeling a little, unease. And by talking about it, by asking questions, I saw that this was a space she wanted to break into, that their company wanted to start to work with people in my field. But this was a thing that keeps coming up. They go to work with people in my field and then they say, but you've never worked with anyone in my field. Where's the proof of concept that I should trust you? And I realized that what she really wants too, in addition to me as a customer, is being able to tell other customers that she's worked with somebody like them. So I said, so I recognize that I'd be the first person in my field you'd take on, but I still want to work with your company. So how about if I provide a testimonial and I provide you feedback on the process and I record a video, giving a testimonial, Can I get some in-store credit towards this package? And she laughed a little, which a good tip is you gotta ask. Sometimes in my mind, I was thinking, Tom, you're really going out there on this one. But in those moments, have confidence and creativity and go for it and ask. And she laughed and said, I'll tell you what, if you do that, if you provide me feedback on the process and you provide me a testimonial, the strategic plan in the beginning, I'll throw in completely for free. So not $3,500 or $1,500, I'll throw it in completely for free. And boom, we arrived at what we both wanted. I wanted that strategic planning thing to be free because I didn't need it. It was a barrier to me. I'm willing to pay the other part of what they were looking for, but not that. What they wanted in the end, I found out because I slowed it down. We were on the phone for probably about 45 minutes before arriving at this, was they wanted not only my service, not only me as a customer for income because they were excited about it, but because it would give them an opportunity to work with someone in my field. And so when I realized that, I found we can both find what we want because it's something we both value. The relationship was built and we both got what we wanted. So that was an example that I wanted to share with you to highlight it. I shared with you that example of Amazon. How did I do that one? Was by building a relationship, by sharing, the stuff that I need delivered is for a group of kids. She said, oh, you got me now. It's for the kids. And found out what she really wants to do is leave with a happy customer and at the same time make sure her bases are covered. So I got on the phone with her supervisor and I shared, this is for the kids. And because I heard things that they want, I said, I recognize that it's a lot of money for you. So we worked through it and I offered creative solutions and I went beyond the dollar and said, hey, maybe it's not that you waive it in this way, but I get in-store credit so I pay it back. In the end, they decided to waive it, but I spent an hour and a half on the phone with them. So you say it's a long time, but you figure an hour and a half for $300, that's, almost $150 an hour. I'll take that. So my friends, I could go on and on with examples after example, but we're running a little long. So I hope these were helpful for you. I know I covered a lot of information in a quick amount of time. So if you have any questions on this, please let me know and I can expand upon any of these. I do want to recommend, I've read a lot of books. I've gone to a lot of seminars in this field, but one of the best books I've ever read is called Never Split the Difference. Negotiating as if your life depends upon it. And it's by this author, Chris Voss. He's a former FBI hostage negotiator. And the FBI, when he was there, has started to use hostage negotiating that is all based upon building a relationship with the person who's holding the hostage, finding out what they want, and trying to meet that need in a way that, of course, doesn't have anything to do with giving money or any of these things. But what we find is that it has to do with meeting their emotional needs so they release the hostage. It's an amazing book, and a lot of it transcribes to everyday negotiations. So if you want a deeper dive, I suggest checking it out. But please let me know if you have any questions. It has been a joy and a pleasure going through this together. Let me know what you like the best. And as always, I'm wishing you peace and blessings.